Okay, so I saw the first 6 minutes of this guy. Yes, I know I'm supposed to do a second video and finish up the technology connections video, but unfortunately, I have a bad case of I saw something shining and I have to touch it. So, me, armed with my bourbon, we're going to go over this Hank Green video. Hank Green is a great guy. I don't know why I'm not subscribed. I am now. It's because it's a new channel. Why the economy hasn't crashed yet.
A lot of people who are pretty informed on how economies work have felt like it's pretty weird that the other shoe has not dropped yet. We've got a government that feels kind of unpredictable. We've got tariffs, like big new tariffs. Also, those tariffs themselves feel very unpredictable. You got people who had previously had their student loans deferred, no longer having them deferred. You got people who used to have government jobs, no longer having those government jobs. But as a person,
Okay, so that right there is a really good recap of what is currently going on. The tariffs being unpredictable, especially for global trade. That's not just something that will impact the United States. That's something that will impact everything because if the United States stops ordering stuff, essentially the world economy collapses. The world economy is built upon the idea that Americans buy stuff because if you live in America, you are in the top 1% of the world. A couple of quick notes. Just the way he frames things, government employees no longer having government jobs, on its face, yeah, that means less jobs, which is bad, but for the most part, there is no government enterprise which generates productive value for the world. The only thing the government can do is take money from the citizenry through taxes or tariffs or whatever, you know. Basically, it's all a tax in one form or another. Distribute that to its government employees. Wow. Thanks, Helldivers 2. Slight delay in the program while I close out of this. There we go. All right. So, as I was saying, if I can remember my train of thought, yes, those government employees are getting paid, which does have some economic value because those employees probably have families, or even if they don't have families, they have to buy things like foods, vehicles, gas, etc., housing. But you don't get the same amount of economic return as you get if you have a private business because a private business has expenses. Those expenses go to another business. Those business expenses go to another business. And you get this huge line down the chain where essentially every dollar becomes something like $10 in economic value. When you go through a government organization, it goes to the government. That's basically it. Maybe it goes to an employee. Maybe it goes to an overpriced defense budget or defense spending contract where we pay $10,000 for a single washer. But the point is that you don't get that 10x per dollar spent. You get like a 1.1x or something like that. It's very minimal. So any government job you can successfully replace with a private sector job is a gain. Also, the more government employees there are, the more bureaucracy. The more bureaucracy, the harder it is to physically do business. That's why you see differences like California versus Texas. California has a ton of bureaucracy. Makes it very expensive because you have to get permits, you have to get licenses, you have to get inspections, you have to get council meetings, you have to do X, Y, Z. Go over to Texas, you file an LLC, you pay $50, you get into business. Like I got a friend that's an electrician in Florida. They require zero licensing to work as I think it's to work under a electrician. So as long as you have one electrician, you're good to go. That's it. Anyways, so the less government employees, the easier it is to do business. The easier to do business, the lower the cost of business. The lower the cost of business, either the higher profit margin for the business or the lower cost of the goods that the business sells. Either way, on both of those fronts, because most of these businesses are small businesses, even though the big businesses eat up a huge wallop, the small businesses are small enough that a rich person, quote unquote, rich person in a small business is still giving most of their money back to the community. So that's my long spiel on why government jobs down is good. Student loans being forced to be paid back, while that does suck for the people with the student loans, these are people that have essentially been complaining about being in the bottom barrel for like 10 years. These are people that are struggling to afford apartments. They're mostly single. They're mostly working like Starbucks jobs. They're basically been on the verge of bankruptcy from the get-go anyways. This isn't going to really impact them because a lot of them are just not going to pay their loans back. But this will impact the banks because the banks now have an expectation that they are going to get their money back. And when the banks believe that their loans are going to be repaid to them, they are more willing to issue out new loans and new money. And the more money they issue out, the easier it is, again, to do business. So while, yes, for a large swath of people, the loan being repaid sucks, that alone keeps down the deficit so much because the other option is for the American federal government to buy the loans off the people and issue it as taxes to everyone. It sucks for the people that have to pay back their loans, but it's great for the banking entities that issue money, the federal government that doesn't have to accrue that much debt, and generally everyone else will say that. And what's going to mostly end up happening probably is there is going to be some sort of bankruptcy crash for like, I don't know, a couple million Americans probably at this point. They're never going to pay off these loans. There's going to have to be some system, but we've deferred that essentially down the road until the end of Trump's presidency at least. Is that all the things I needed to touch on there?
So for over a year now, the other shoe has not dropped yet. We've got a
Yes, the other shoe has not dropped yet. This is mostly coming from economists, the high-profile people, the big banks. Well, the big banks until they saw that the loans were getting paid back, and then they were kind of satiated for the moment. The huge mega corporations are really against all this. The chip manufacturers, Intel, the data, the AI companies, because they were freaking out about the chips.
government that feels kind of unpredictable. We've got
The government being unpredictable, that is at the very least true on its face. Like, no one knows what the hell Trump's going to do next. People that support him say he's not doing enough. People that are against him say he's Mecha Hitler.
tariffs, like big new tariffs, all their student loans deferred. No, but as a person who is really involved in the running of a couple of
So that's my take on all that. Let's continue on with the video.
small organizations, this unpredictability piece of this is like a really big deal. It's like big cost for a business.
Yes, he is completely right on this. The company I work at, I only started at recently. I manage probably about $1 million worth of stuff at that company. That's as far as I'll get into it. And this stuff is being ordered and built and financed under the idea that we are going to have returns on this stuff for the next 30 years. If we expect markets to crash, then that's going to be 60 years. If we expect markets to boom, then that'll be 10 years. We're hoping it's 10 years. You always hope it's a businessman's 10 years, but you plan it out basically on a 30-year time span. And if things are unpredictable, you can't plan out 30 years. And that's a huge problem as a business.
Especially if you're running a small business where you can't just like call up a lobbyist and get an exemption. You can't shift production between 3 different continents. You can't find
Sorry, let me play
a lobbyist and get an exemption. You can't shift production between 3 different continents. You can't finance a sudden inventory pileup because you're worried that the rules are going to change next Tuesday. And so
All right. So while he's right on most of that point, basically any business at any... All right, that's a terrible face to stop you on. I'm sorry, Hank. You need to have resting faces at some point because none of these are good. Any business of any considerable, of any marginal value, at least at the direct community level, they can make a call. They can make a call to their local senator, local mayor, local congressman, whatever, and they will be heard. And you do not need to be a big business to be invested in your local governance. Like, it's people think $1 million is a lot of money. It's really not. If you're running a business, you're floating $1 million up and down nearly. Like, if you're running a 7-Eleven blows through millions of dollars a year. A fast food restaurant, millions of dollars. I have McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, all of these things, millions of dollars. If you're out in like rural country where there's like 1,000, 2,000 people in your town and you have a general store, you're probably looking at 500 grand in and out per year. And you're like, oh my God, 500 grand. No, you're living off of like 80K of that. You're looking at half of that going to your expenses. You're looking at another quarter of it going to back into the business. And then, yeah, you're living off of like as little as you can because every penny you take out of that is hard on you. So anytime you lose another penny, you make a call to the mayor because the mayor of the town has only one general store in his town and he wants to keep you happy. So it's like, unless you're in like downtown New York City, downtown LA, downtown DC, you know, like these huge cities, like they're not mega cities, but they're, for all intents and purposes, they're mega cities. Millions of people in square miles. You have a lot more say than you think you do.
And get an exemption. You can't shift production between 3 different continents. You can't finance a sudden
Of course, if you're a general store, you can't do any of this stuff. You can't shift production around continents or anything like that. Your costs are fixed, which makes you extra invested in your local arrangements.
inventory pile up because you're worried that the rules are going to change next Tuesday. And so there's a big mystery here because markets are up. Jobs are not collapsing. They're like, okay. Spending seems okay. People are still buying stuff. Online
This is actually the best take I've seen on the economy. Like that phrase right there. It's jobs are okay. Finances are okay. Like, of course, all the MAGA people are diehard. Oh my God, everything's so great. The Dow, look at the Dow, look at the Dow, blah, 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 blah. And everyone not Trump is like screaming their head off and pretending that the world's ending like they did the first time Trump was president. But really, when you look at it, it's just, it's okay. We're getting there. Like, under the first 4 years of Biden, I saw my finances tank hard. I was looking at each year with dread. Trump's in office. It's been a year now. I look at it and I'm like, okay, I can probably get through this year. It's okay. We are probably good right now. And that basically sums it up. Like, my field directly, because my niche is always hiring, but like all the parallel career paths at my business, the business I work for, it's kind of in that same spot where like hiring's not up, it's not down. We're doing kind of we're filtering out bad employees and trying to find good employees. We're not paying anyone less. We're still paying people more. Everyone got a pretty good raise this year. Incentives are up just enough to kind of match the expected inflation. Like, everyone's okay. We're at least where we were last year, which is better than we could say the last 4 years. Like, no one was looking at 2023 and saying, oh yeah, I'm doing better than 2022. But everyone's looking at 2026 and they're like, okay, I'll probably be at least where I'm at the end of 2026 as I was at the start of 2025.
holiday spending in 2025, higher than ever. Now,
that one is a bad metric because most of that is, he's about to say it, is from the top 10%. Like, spending's up because inflation went up, not because actually the economy's getting better.
the labor market has cooled. You can find plenty of stories about slowing hiring and rising uncertainty. But broadly, the story as it stands is this thing is still chugging along a lot more than people seem to have expected. So why? And I've heard a few explanations that I think are good explanations. I also have a hypothesis that I want to run by everybody that I think is terrifying. But we'll talk about the explanations.
Any more bourbon before he does that? Did I not bring down my bourbon? Oh no. Oh no. Alright. Radio silence for 1 minute while I go get my bourbon. Did you miss me? Okay. It's 2 distractions in, and we're not even half an hour in. I wasn't even gonna make a video today. I was gonna play Helldivers 2, and then Helldivers decided to push another update. To their credit, though, this is the first time an update's been pushed out from Helldivers. That didn't take 3 hours to download. That one only took like 45 minutes, maybe half an hour. I'm sure part of it's my internet connection, but that does not make me feel better when I want to play Helldivers and I cannot. So now you all have to listen to my ass. So if you're pissed about that, write the Helldiver 2 devs and tell them to stop updating the game with such huge files so frequently. Or contact Gabe and tell him to update my Steam files even though I'm not in Steam and haven't logged in for, like 2 weeks because I got a wife and kids and can't ever get to my damn computer. Back to it.
I've heard that I think are pretty good. One, the AI investment boom. There's a lot of real money going into the real economy to build data centers and buy chips and power infrastructure and do the software and everything downstream of all of that. A bunch of...
This is a big chunk of specifically local area electrician business going up, power grid infrastructure going up. A few things outside of that, really, AI data centers, they have some maintenance crew. It's a lot, mostly electrical type stuff, a lot of, I don't want to say niche, but kind of like trade work. Yeah, trade work would be the right word. But they're really localized. They're, it's not a lot of jobs per area. It's mostly bringing equipment. It's a giant construction job, essentially. And then once it's done, it's a few trade maintenance personnel like you would get at any other facility, really. This is what's driving most of the on-paper economic boom. And that, I think that's what's driving Trump's entire policy around AI, is that the AI, NVIDIA, OpenAI, Grok AI, all of them are entirely propped up on the idea that they're getting cheap chips, tons of chips, because we're kind of hitting this critical point in chip manufacturing. And there's enough infrastructure to really build out these data centers in America. And if we... You guys probably know my stance on nuclear at this point, but if we had a ton of nuclear plants, electricity would be so cheap that it'd essentially be free to have an AI in your pocket, both carbon emission-wise and electricity cost-wise, making AI a huge business. I digress. This is what's keeping the stock market afloat right now. It doesn't really reflect most people. It'll help you if you have a 401k or a stock portfolio, but most people don't check their 401ks, and most people that do have a stock portfolio are really hesitant to take out of it, so there's not really any benefit to them either. It's all on paper. It's basically pointless.
Different economic analysis has shown that this has been a big contributor to the macro situation in the US. It accounted for a lot of the private demand growth in the first half of 2025. Latter half of 2025, probably. We don't have that data yet. And there's also like an interesting fiscal tailwind right now, and that is in tax policy. What we are doing is we are taxing people less. We've lowered taxes, especially on the wealthy, and we're
Yes, we've lowered taxes. I do think that's his bias showing, saying it's mostly on the wealthy. I doubt that claim. Even in Trump's first presidency, they were pushing this tax break for the wealthy thing, and they proved on paper years later, like I think it was 2023 or 2, that it was in fact a Democrat propaganda campaign to convince voters that the Trump tax cuts were for the rich. And I highly doubt he's changed his policy on that since.
we're financing that through deficit spending, and that can keep
Deficit spending is up. Yes, this is a problem. He has upped a lot of spending in a lot of areas. And on one hand, it's kind of hard to argue with it. But on the other hand, there's nothing more I hate than deficit spending. So a lot of it is giving excessive tax breaks to AI companies specifically, which pisses me off because you should be taking a slice of that pie. Second is defense spending, because we've looked so weak for so long that, you know, Ukraine got invaded, Taiwan's being threatened, the Chinese fishing fleet is sucking the earth dry. North Korea kind of fell off the map, which is kind of weird. Argentina, Colombia, you know, all of these basically dictatorships started popping back up. Iran. Bleh. It's just been hell. The October 7th thing with Israel and Palestine. So we have now, because the world started getting out of hand and America is the world's police force, we are now forced to again militarize and police them all, because these are a bunch of savages and we can't let them be by themselves without them killing each other.
demand high.
Sorry. Defense spending is a huge one. AI is another one. Is there anything else I'm missing? The huge immigration stuff, which I think for the dollar has not worked out for the American people. I'm a huge fan of deportations. I'm a huge fan of remigration, demigration, decitizing. Deport them all. That I don't care anymore. I am fully in deport them all category. Don't care. Send them away. I'm over it. I'm pissed. I have a lot of gripes about that. I will not stop griping about that. But for the cost and the effort that the U.S. government's putting in with Border Patrol and ICE, we are not seeing any return on our investment. We got, 400,000 deportations last year? We got supposedly 1.6 voluntary deportations. So it's like, 2 million a year? We're going to get 8 million out in Trump's entire presidency. Let's call it 12 million, assuming that he ramps it up each year. They imported 20 million under Biden? This is not... These numbers... Someone's either... Well, obviously both sides are lying about their numbers, because they always are. You can't trust a thing that comes out of the DNC or the RNC. They're all full of crap. So someone's lying somewhere. Everyone's lying everywhere. But there's no way we're going to get this immigration problem under control in a fiscally useful manner by 2028. Heck, I doubt we're even going to the Republicans will even win the midterm, so I doubt we'll even get anything done after this year. So those are the three main things driving the deficit right now,
when things would otherwise slow down. And that's especially true if a lot of the economy is propped up by wealthy households. The Wall Street Journal reported that the top 10% of earners drive about half of consumer spending, because...
Well, I don't doubt that. I doubt that's true as of now. I think this was true years ago. So let's actually pull up Grok. Let's see if we can't get his opinion on this. Helps if you give them the right number. Economy. That was probably a terrible way to prompt that. Well, top 10% was about 30% in 2023. 40-50 in the 20s. 50% in the 80s. 2018 was in the 50s. Okay, so this seems a lot more up and down than I thought it was going to be. So I don't know what to make of this at all. It is, yeah, I will agree. It's probably a bad sign looking at this. But it's happened many times before. Obviously, the 1920s, it was a bad time. 70s, 80s, what is that? The gas crises, maybe? 2018, nothing bad happened there. The only bad thing during Trump's first presidency was COVID, which anyone that blames him is a retard.
People with assets are doing quite well. If you had money in the stock market, you have a lot more money than you used to have. And you could just sell some stocks and go on vacation, or sell some stocks and buy a new car. Like,
I don't see people that sell stocks to do XYZ. I see people that take stock dividends to do stuff, but I have never seen people really, like, you have Bitcoin holders from like 2010 or 2012. It's ridiculous.
they have money to spend. So if stock prices are doing well, like they stay high, then
I think what it is people that have money, disposable money, to have their 401k and then have their own stock portfolio and then have the time to manage their own stock portfolio and then keep managing it while all this is going on. They're the ones that are like, oh, would you look at that? My Intel stock just jumped 50% today. I will sell it off and we will go on vacation. Like, these are people that are already living in luxury. This isn't, like, yeah, it's helping them, but this isn't indicative really of anything.
and high earners are able to keep spending, and you get an economy that looks kind of fine in aggregate when a lot of small businesses and a lot of normal people are not feeling fine. And all of that.
See, this is my biggest gripe with what I watched prior to this. I got to about 6.5 minute mark is I don't agree with that. Like, just something about it.
Earners are able to keep spending, and you get an economy that looks kind of fine in aggregate when a lot of small businesses and a lot of normal people are not feeling fine.
Not feeling fine. This is the first time in 4 years I've kind of felt fine. And the consensus I've had over everyone I work with, both at my current employment and my previous employment, is they finally kind of feel fine. Like, the economy doesn't look great, but it looks like it'll be fine for a little while. And everyone that's employed is like, they think they'll still be employed this time next year if they want to keep their job. Like, if they find something better, they're all like, oh yeah, I'll move in a heartbeat, but this job is fine. The only people I really see freaking out about the economy and everything is the higher echelons, the people that are probably making 2-3 times what I make, like VPs and up, or maybe regional managers and up, like people that have to consider global supply lines. They're the ones, yeah, that's probably the defining factor. People that have to consider the global market are the ones that are looking at things and going, things are looking bad, it's unpredictable, it's hard to figure it out. For most people, they're not really tied to the global economy. Sure, they order stuff off Amazon, but if stuff on Amazon gets too expensive, they just stop ordering it. Their milk, their bread, their eggs come from their local grocery store, which is mostly insulated from this. America grows its own food still, pretty much. Beef prices, I don't know what the hell's going on with that. But I just bought a pig, and that was $425 for 130 pounds of meat. So I'm feeling pretty happy on that front. So yeah, most of the, and this is probably why he's particularly freaking out. He's in charge of a couple businesses. He has to look at these expenses. The more you have, it seems to be the riskier that it is right now. It seems more unstable at the top than it does at the bottom. The middle range, the bottom range, they seem to be kind of stabilized, and the upper echelons are where it's getting really dicey. And I think in particular, that's a good thing. Your wealth, if you have a ton of wealth, should not be quote unquote secure. It should be you are paying attention, you are making right choices day in and day out. Otherwise, your wealth goes to someone that will. That's more of a personal opinion than an economic opinion, but the point is, I think he's inverted this. Because the economists are freaking out, the CNN hosts are freaking out, the Fox News, like anyone that has substantial wealth is kind of freaking out. Especially if you do have a lot of stocks, you're freaking out because the stock market does gymnastics routines with Trump in office. And for you, with $1 million in stocks, that's a big deal. For your average person, you don't care that the Dow's up 50 points, down 500 points, up 75 points, down 20 points, up 300 points. You don't care. You don't even know what the Dow is. I don't know what the Dow is. I bought a couple stocks. I don't know what the Dow is. But the point is that the stock market being unstable, right now we're probably at a unique point in history where the stock market being unstable is actually not reflective of individuals, because we've had these years of stock buybacks, so the individual companies aren't as tied to those public stocks. And at the same time, the people that work, like the lower, let's say 50%, don't have that many stocks, so they're not tied to the stock market either. Because the way we used to tie the poor people into the stock market was, one, their 401ks, and two, the fact that those big companies would lay off people when the stock market tanked. Now, basically, the idea of the stock market seems to be degrading. This idea that you can keep half your business in this giant pile of paper and bureaucracy and data and mess and trade constantly flowing in and out of computers is becoming unsustainable. Not unstable, unsustainable. If you have too much in the stock market, you will not continue to exist over the long term. So companies are pulling out of the stock market publicly. They're keeping stocks. You can be a private investor and own, 20% of a company, but you're not dependent upon your stock price anymore. Because if you are dependent on your stock price, someone's going to release a 30-second audio clip or a 30-second video of you, or some streamer, Asmongold, Hassan, pick a celebrity, whoever, is going to release a hit piece on you, CoffeeZilla, and your stock tanks 30% overnight. Or some probably actually what's really probably killing them is private equity, because private equity buys up a stock, kills the company, extracts the wealth from that company, buys up another stock. I think private equity. Venture capital is a different thing. Private equity is probably what's literally sharking the entire stock market as we know it. And while it's awful what they're doing, I think it's actually probably a benefit. That's probably why we're seeing this, it's kind of okay, because everyone's pulling away from the stock market in general.
And all of that feels like it makes sense to me, and it tells a fairly coherent story. I have an addition that I'd like to propose.
I love his addition.
And this is dangerous because I'm just a guy. And there's a weaker version of...
He's a cis, white, straight male.
This hypothesis that I feel like is pretty true, and I've actually heard it from other places. And there's a stronger version that, if it is true, I feel like is bad. like really bad. So I'm going to tell you my little guess here, and then I'm going to talk to an actual economist about whether I'm totally off the mark. And spoiler, if I discover that there's nothing to this, I will not release it as I have just recorded it. But I think that you should stick around for that conversation to see what holes we poke in my ideas here. So let's start with a weaker claim that this is just a kind of political physics at work. The markets, we're going to talk about the markets a lot here, but these are human beings, and they are...
This is an important distinction that a lot of people forget to make. And I think this is something that people are coming to now, is that it's not a market, it's a group of people. The original 1920 stock market crash causing the Great Depression wasn't caused by the stock market crash. It was caused by people thinking the stock market was unreliable. And everyone pulled out simultaneously, and there wasn't enough liquidity in the market to sustain it. And that was the crash. You went into the bank to pull out some money, and there was no money to pull.
Are broadly, we're going to talk about this a little later, but broadly fairly sympathetic to Donald Trump. They think that he's going to be good for them. And I think in part because they...
Sorry, let's back that up. I think I'm
human beings, and they are broadly, we're going to talk about this a little later, but broadly fairly sympathetic to Donald Trump. They think that he's going to be good for them. And I
think he's specifically referring to the working class being, for the most part, Donald Trump. The party's flipped in that regard, where the Republican Party is now the party of the working class and the Democrat is the elites.
I think in part because they understand the incentives here. And Trump, his popularity, his success is very much tied to the market not collapsing.
This is, I think, probably the greatest stake he had, is that there is the economy is built on the idea that the economy will not collapse tomorrow. That's what an economy is. It is faith. And that is exactly what's going on here, is that Trump's entire base knows, well, they can't know, they have faith that Trump's going to protect the economy. That's what they, be above everything else. They couldn't care less if the illegals stay or go. The main goal is they need to be able to financially provide for themselves and their families. They think deporting people is a means to that end. And so they will do whatever means, they will go along with whatever means Trump can sell as a means to the ends of financial security and prosperity for them, because that's their number one concern. Trump's base, first of all. Even the people not supportive of Trump, their number one concern has been, for the last couple of years, financial security. Well, that's probably inaccurate to say. It's hard to guess what the left wants. I can't make my IQ that low. I digress. Let's continue.
There not being an economic downturn. And so the markets, these people who are in charge of buying and selling and sort of set a lot of the prices, they know that Trump will back off if the markets freak out. They know.
This is an excellent point, and this actually retroactively explains a lot of Trump's policies. Hank explains this, but I didn't actually realize how much of it was explained by this until I listened to Hank.
So Trump won't do something, it would be very self-destructive for him to make decisions that would actually result in an economic downturn. And not just that, but that he's going to make a lot of decisions to make that not happen in whatever way he can, because a lot of his power, this is always true of a president, but specifically for Donald Trump, who has a lot of his credibility built on him being a good businessman.
Exactly. Trump's main concern is the economy, the market. That's what he sells himself on day in and day out. That's the number one avenue Democrats try to attack him on, calling about his bankruptcies, his taxes, blah, 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 his failed businesses. His base supports him under the idea of having business in America. That's the number one thing. And going back to previous points, an unstable global market is really good for a domestic market, because domestic markets are being insulated from the global effects. So while ordering junk from China might have gone up 2x on this tariff or 20x on that, or whatever the hour of the day is on Trump, the steel you bought from a U.S. steel company, if you can find a U.S. steel company, costs the same as it did 2 years ago. Probably went up like 30% just because of inflation, but it costs effectively the same as it did 2 years ago. So the global market instability is actually helping domestic markets, which is possibly, it would be really hard to confirm this without being an expert in the field of, I don't know, probably direct supply chains, like not being an expert in quote unquote economics, but like, oh yeah, I spent 10 years in the steel industry and then 15 years in the copper industry and then 10 years in the silicon industry and 20 years in aluminum, blah, 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 like the actual supply chains that feed America type thing. But yeah, I would say this is definitely one thing that's helping out because we are now becoming desperate for a local economic system insulated from this global tariff war.
And for whatever that's worth, I think that the markets understand that President Trump understands that if the economy turns down, it will be very bad for the amount of power that he has. He likes having power. He will do whatever he can to have the economy.
I think he's, again, showing bias by saying power. He's implying it's some type of, and maybe this is just me, I think he's implying some type of like corrupt power, oppressive power type thing. It's less that, it's more power as in influence. He wants, I'd say it's more like the K-pop Demon Hunter things. He wants fans. He wants to be praised and thought of as great. He wants to be Donald Trump, the greatest. His base supports him. He jokes about running for a third term. I don't think anyone really takes that seriously. So he's not particularly worried about he has no direct incentive to be cared for. Like, he's not running for re-election type stuff. What he does want is he wants to have an impression on history. And so he wants to go on in the history books as a good man. He wants to win the hearts and minds of the Americans. That's kind of his main goal. Is he wants to be remembered as a good guy by getting a lot of people to like him. In America, at least. He doesn't care about the rest of the world. So it's not really power. He's trading it. It's probably closer to like a high school popularity game than anything else, which, if that's better or not, I won't tell you, but
Economy not have a downturn. And that includes exercising a lot of power that a normal president might not exercise, including putting a lot of pressure on the Fed.
And he's completely right on this. Trump is doing whatever he can to ensure the economy will run, even if it's not necessarily something that's traditionally, even if it's legally or not legally. Like, he's really pushing as hard as he can on every avenue he can, specifically on economics. If he pushed this hard on immigration, I think he'd probably be doing better. Gonna be honest. At least with his base. Like, the people that hate Trump, there's no change in their minds. But his base, he's losing them on immigration. So, he's staking his claim on the economy. Again, he did that the first time. And it kind of worked out for him the first time. And everyone knows that it's this game that Hank is describing. Everyone knows he's staking his claim on the economy. So he's going to make sure the economy works. Everyone knows that he needs the economy to work, so they're going to make the economy work. And back and forth. Like this game. This dance.
Doing a lot of things that he should not technically have the ability to do. Basically, if the president's power depends on the economy looking good, and if markets are one of the loudest and fastest feedback mechanisms we have, then investors can rationally believe that there is a limit to how much pain the White House will tolerate. And that comes straight down to self-interest. So the market can price in a kind of back off button. And we saw this early on. Last April, after the administration's tariff day that they had, Trump announced a 90-day pause on.
That pissed me off. I'm going to be honest with you. Everything Hank has said is completely correct. I'm just pissed at Trump for bitching out like that after like a day.
A lot of the tariffs, and then the S&P 500 had its biggest daily gain since 2008. So that's the basic.
I wish I bought that dip. I bought the Tesla dip. I did. When everyone started firebombing Teslas and their stock tanked, I bought like $300 in Tesla stock, and oh my god, did I do good on that.
Weaker claim that Donald Trump.
Ironically, buying the Tesla stock dip drug me out of the Donald Trump shitcoin hole that I bought myself into, because I really thought that the Donald Trump coin was like gonna have some value, and oh my god, did it not. I screwed up on that one. That was the first stock I ever bought myself, was Donald Trump stock, and boy, oh boy, it took me like a year to dig myself out of that hole.
Trump will do whatever he can to keep the economy humming along. And also, he has proven to be good at exercising a lot more power than previous presidents. And so the markets believe that this very powerful force will continue to support it. I've heard a lot of people say that there's something happening in the direction of Donald Trump needs the economy to hold on to his power. But there is another portion of that cycle, which he has a lot of power, and so he knows he has to keep the economy going, so he will keep the economy going. And the markets understand that there's a lot of power in the administration and that it will work very hard to keep the economy going. It's a circular thing. Do you see how it goes both ways? Trump needs the economy needs Trump. And so one of the things that might...
And that's probably the best way I've seen it described in the entire going on 9 years since Trump's first presidency, because this is exactly how it was the first time around. That's the game with Trump, and it's weirdly simple, but it's weirdly remarkable that no one has gotten it this succinctly since until now.
Be keeping the economy humming along is knowing that there is a strong man who has a great deal of power and is not afraid to use it, and he will do whatever it takes to keep the economy humming along. And you see this in like little details, like Trump has exemptions on electronics like smartphones and computers and semiconductors, and that's like a lot of the big companies that are responsible for a lot of the increase in the market, like in the S&P 500. So he's working hard to protect the things that at least make it look like the economy is still good. So even if tariffs and chaos and firing a bunch of government employees is bad for like the real economy, investors feel like there's a line that the administration won't cross, and also that there's lots of stuff that they will do to keep supporting the economy, because the Trump administration isn't going to threaten its own political power by letting the economy collapse. And that's a big buoy for the market. It lowers the perceived risk. If you feel like there's a guy who has a whole lot of power in charge of the country, he's not going to let that downturn happen, and he will bully whoever he needs to, fire whoever he needs to, even investigate whoever he needs to, do a little bit of power that he shouldn't be wielding here and there to keep it going for his whole 4 years. I think as a model of incentives, especially for the kinds of people who are involved in finance, who tend to be more sort of aligned politically with Donald Trump, and who do...
No, they are not aligned politically with Donald Trump. They're aligned financially with Donald Trump. They are aligned, they're not aligned economically, but they are tied to him economically. They are dependent upon him economically. Definitely not politically. This goes back to that. The Democrats and the Republicans have flipped. The Republicans are now the working class. The Democrats are now the higher echelons.
Do a lot of incentives-based thinking. I think that this makes sense, that like this structure would result in the short term in a more stable economy than you would otherwise expect. But that is not the strong claim that I want to make. The riskier claim that I'd like to make here is far more worrying. But first, this video is brought to you by my newsletter. It's called We're Here. You get it once a week, every Friday. It comes in and it delivers to you some of the coolest things that I found from the internet, some introductory thoughts either from me or from my brother John, and also often a little blog post from the amazing people at Our World in Data. It is a human curated thing that's delivered to your email inbox for you to look at or not once a week. Check it out. There's a link in the description. It doesn't cost any money, and it doesn't even have any advertising.
Doesn't cost any money. I was not expecting that, honestly. Doesn't have any advertising either, really?
From me or from my brother John.
I don't watch a lot of Hank Green videos. I see clips of him.
and also often a little blog post from the amazing people at Our World in Data. It is a human-curated thing that's delivered to your email inbox for you to look at or not once a week. Check it out. There's a link in the description. It doesn't cost any money, and it doesn't even have any advertising. I make negative dollars from this thing, but I do want people to sign up for it because I think that it's good.
That's the best sales pitch I've ever heard. Like, this dude's paying you to look at his newsletter. I'm going to go sign up for that after this video.
All right, thank you. So here's the strong claim. It's not Trump will work really hard to avoid a crash, and not even Trump will, do some underhanded things to exercise his power in ways that might not technically be aligned with how the country's supposed to work according to the Constitution to keep that from happening. There are some really big companies that are responsible for a lot of the economy, and they would like to be exposed to less risk and have more opportunity for cheaper. And what if?
Yeah, that's just business always. We want more opportunity, we want less risk, we want more profit, we want less cost. This is kind of stating the obvious.
If the biggest companies can do relatively cheap things to signal loyalty and proximity
I don't like where this is going.
to Trump, and in return they get access to the levers of power, and that access reduces their risk and increases their upside.
Should I give my whole take now, or should I let him try and finish? All right, I'm going to watch the whole thing, and then I'll say my comments.
And proximity.
I will TLDR. It sounds like he's about to say Trump's bought and paid for. Trump is the only politician that does not need to be bought and paid for. He is independently wealthy. So what he gains by buying Walmart or anything like that, I don't know.
To Trump, and in return they get access to the levers of power, and that access reduces their risk and increases their upside. This is not the back off button. There's a couple words for this. You could call this a patronage system. You could call it also an oligarchy. And look, is this quid pro quo?
Yeah, I don't like where this is going.
Is this definitely written down and say, I'm bribing you now, and then he says, yes, thank you for your bribe, here's your new more lax regulation. It doesn't really have to be that. It's a pattern. There's a lot of more discretionary policy. There's a lot of stuff that the administration can.
He shut down USAID. He shut down the Department of Education. How is this discretionary spending? He's cutting spending at every corner, except for, basically, I can only think of 3 areas: AI, defense spending, and immigration enforcement. What other departments have been expanded?
Do or not do, enforce or not enforce, just depending on vibes. And this administration has no qualms about doing that more or less, from my perspective, depending on whether or not it seems like this organization of people has some amount of loyalty to Donald Trump. And in a world like that, very quickly, the best business strategy becomes do that. Not make a better product, not do a bunch of innovation, not compete on price, but just give a little bit of money to the administration.
What does Trump stand to gain by getting $10 million from Walmart? $10 million does not affect Trump. I just don't see the logical reasoning here. If you came up to me and offered me $20 to do some, you know the old saying, I'm not gay, but $20 is $20. If you came up to me and offered me $20, that's not enough to make me gay. I don't know what to tell you. What does Trump gain by selling out for essentially pennies on the dollar? He was wealthy before he entered politics. He was wealthy before 2016. He was wealthy after 2016. He was politically persecuted after 2016, so he has a lot of reason to go scorched earth on everyone that supported anyone that was against him, which is a lot of these companies. A lot of these companies were actively funding people to persecute Trump, so they are probably groveling, maybe. I don't know, maybe. But I don't see why he'd forgive them for pennies, for $10 million. Oh, I'll take a small loan of $1 million. Dude's worth billions now, isn't he? I really struggle to see this argument. Like, please explain to me, anyone.
All you gotta do is stay in favor. And for these big companies,
And just on that, like they weren't bribing Biden to stay, like the mega corporations stayed open in COVID. They bribed Biden. They stayed in favor with Biden to stay open during COVID. Small businesses didn't get that. Like, how is Trump, at the very least, how is he more loyal or bought by big business than Biden is?
this is why a lot of people, I hear them say, like, I don't understand why none of these rich guys have any balls. Like, why aren't they pushing back against this? It's because if they don't stay in favor, their stock prices will go down, and they see their job as what their job is, which is to make the price go up for their investors. They work for their investors. They don't work for capitalism. They don't work for democracy. They don't work for ideology. They don't.
He's talking about the CEOs when he says that, but the CEOs aren't the stockholders. The stockholders, the people giving billions of dollars to these people, or millions, or however much, are the stock owners. These are the main owners. The Walmart family is the one that donates to these campaigns. And sure, Walmart as a business might, but they're not doing so under the CEO's discretion. They're doing so under the owner's discretion.
Work for their customers. They work for the share price. And that can be fine, as long as making better products is the way you make more money. I don't think that this is
That's a nothing statement.
like a paranoid fantasy. There are facts here. So Trump's 2025 inauguration fundraising was crazy. Almost $250 million, which was corporations. It was ultra wealthy donors. Crypto firm.
$250 million. Come on. Jesus Christ, what are you thinking about, Rock? $1.15 billion. $80 million in 24 hours, so 1/3 of Trump's spending in 24 hours. More than his entire spending in a month. $1 billion.
So Trump's 2025 inauguration fundraising was crazy. Almost $250 million.
I just don't.
Which was corporations. It was ultra wealthy donors. Crypto firms alone.
What the heck happened to my screen here? That's what you get for buying a brick.
Work for the share price. And that can be fine, as long as making better products is the way you make more money. I don't think that this is like a paranoid fantasy. There are facts here. So Trump's 2025 inauguration fundraising was crazy. Almost $250 million, which was corporations. It was ultra wealthy donors. Crypto firms alone gave around $18 million to the inauguration. But the inauguration just happens one time. So how else can you absorb some signals that people might be supportive of you and loyal to you? Maybe you want to build a $300 million ballroom, but you don't want to use taxpayer dollars for it. So you have it be private donation fund. And maybe this isn't even public. You have major corporations. You have wealthy individuals. You have major tech guys giving money.
How does the ballroom enrich Trump? This again, it goes back to his ego, his claim to fame, but he doesn't get to keep the White House ball when he leaves.
Money to build this thing. Why are they doing that? Why, out of the goodness of their hearts, are they funding the construction of a ballroom? Do they think like, yeah, no, we need a ballroom? Is that what they're thinking? No, I
According to sources, yeah, they've been saying for years that they need a ballroom.
understand that some people might be thinking right now, okay, yeah, Hank, rich people and corporations give to political things in order to get sway. Well,
I said that.
welcome to America. But the case I'm making isn't that like people could spend money to get political capital. The case I'm making is very, very large companies that are responsible for like the majority of the S&P 500 are definitely like engaging in this. Like they were sitting behind Donald Trump at the inauguration. They bought those seats. They're doing high visibility and high dollar shows of loyalty and support. But they're super cheap compared to like competing on price. Right? Or like doing a bunch of R&D to create a new product. And they know.
Yeah, this is just basic lobbyism, which I'm against, but like, this is not unique to Trump.
That the Trump administration has set up an environment where policy outcomes are super uncertain and discretionary, and also
I don't think his policy outcomes are. I think tariffs are. I guess that's policy, but for the most part, he's pretty straightforward. Fewer regulations, and not much else. Like, it's not. Trump has put a lot of effort into making things less tricky. Unless I'm substantially wrong, like someone would have to point out where it's more tricky now than it was before. But I remember the 2016 presidency where he was showing off how he reduced the tax code from like a pallet of paper down to a single stack.
also very consequential. They can have a huge impact on your business, but whether or not something actually gets enforced, I don't know. Who decides that? I'm not sure. It's not clear.
This seems like a very cop-out type claim to make. Who gets enforced? Like, it kind of feels like he's trying to purposefully make a claim that can't be substantiated.
Clear. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, and it's different for different companies. How do we decide? How do we decide? If you're a huge company that is an
And again, I want to point out, for the Biden presidency, if you were a megacorp, you were fine to stay open during COVID. If you weren't, good luck.
incumbent, you live in that world, all you need
How's that for discretionary policy?
is like a shared understanding of the incentives here. You need to believe that the president rewards loyalty and punishes disloyalty and wants power. And like once you like believe all of those things, you can relatively cheaply demonstrate your loyalty. And then suddenly we have a lot of really big companies that are in a world that has more opportunities and less risk and fewer threats. And that is an economy drifting toward an oligarchy. I, somewhat famously among certain groups of people, am not as critical of capitalism as you might expect. But I also understand that capitalists have no ideological allegiance to capitalism. That's not what they're doing. They're trying to make more money. A good capitalist will happily become an oligarch. Because if the other choice is having your competitor become the oligarch, then that's a terrible decision. Why would you do that? And you can drift toward this oligarchy without like some kind of like big suitcase full of cash situation. It's not so much about the money. It's about the consolidation of power. It's about very
This has nothing to do with Trump's presidency. This is just a rant on the risks and benefits of capitalism.
large companies knowing that they can't cross the president and they have to demonstrate through some kind of donation that they are not going to be one of the ones who is critical of the president. And the world of finance matters specifically here, I think. So we have seen Open Secrets did some good reporting on this, described the securities and investment industry as a top donor category to Trump-aligned interests and PACs and stuff. Financial advisors also donated way more to Trump than to Biden/Harris. If you're in finances and you think that the game, this is not everybody, but if you think the game is political power protects asset prices, then supporting political power, that just becomes risk management. And this is a phenomenon that in the short term can keep markets buoyed while the underlying economy is being damaged, because the big companies that are responsible.
He has yet to this point actually indicate a reason why the underlying economy is being damaged, by the way. So this is, as of current, unsubstantiated speculation.
For all of these assets that are still flying high, and then the people who have assets and then the people who have ownership of those assets can sell some stock and go on a big vacation and stay in a 5-star hotel. All that money is still getting spent. All that economy is still happening. But part of the reason is that these big companies know that they can purchase stability and opportunity and freedom from risk. And not just that.
They can't purchase freedom from risk. That would be purchasing a bailout like Obama did.
But the people in the finance industry understand that this is a thing that's happening. And when you compare that to the antagonistic stance that a lot of the Biden administration had toward big businesses.
What antagonistic stances? Name one.
To some people, maybe this just seems like a business-friendly environment. And so this is the stronger claim that I'm making here, that there is actually a stabilizing force on the economy through this mechanism, that big incumbents, who are the majority of the economy and thus the majority of the asset prices and thus the majority of the money of the wealthy who are spending the majority of the money, believe that they can get protection. As long as they can demonstrate loyalty to Donald Trump, that reduces the downside risk for the big firms. The big firms dominate the index stays strong, assets keep higher earner spending, high-end spending props up like the average spending, and then the average spending props up all of everybody.
None of this props up Donald Trump's base. Donald Trump's base is not these big asset spenders. His political foundation is not on them. It's under the working class. His goal is to prop them up. They don't even have to do better, I guess. Like, in like the most dismal view, like they don't have to do better. They just have to do okay enough. But all of this is feeding back into the Republicans are now the party of the working class. The Democrats are the hierarchs. Biden fed big business as much as he can. Like something like half the recovery from COVID went to big business. All of it. Walmart was probably the biggest one out of all of them, but oh my goodness, all of the major chain restaurants recovered better. All of the major stores recovered better. Who suffered were the mom and pop shops. Something like half the mom and pop shops shut down during COVID and were never to reopen. That is the largest single shutdown of small business in favor of large business in American history.
These earnings, and then the earnings prop up the index. So tariffs can be a drag, the unpredictability can be a drag, everything can suck for small.
Tariffs hurt big businesses. They don't hurt small businesses. Small businesses don't have international trade agreements worth billions of dollars, trillions of dollars. Small businesses buy their steel from their local supplier.
Businesses, everything can suck for the lower and middle class, but the market can still float up there because the market is betting that the winners will be protected and the losers will be everybody else. But the winners will be protected, and they're the ones that take up so much of the economy.
Yeah, he's completely lost the plot. Earlier, he was saying that his base was based on the economy floating. His base is the working class. And now he's saying his base is the rich people at the top. So he's just done a sleight of hand right here.
Anyway. Now, I assume that we all understand that if we're pretty far over on the spectrum,
I am very disappointed, Hank Green.
The short-term stability in the market does not mean like long-term good outcomes. Like the cost of this, we've seen it in lots of different countries, is brutal. Any economy where impress the dictator beats build a better product is not a competitive economy. It's not one that generates a lot of good stuff. It stops serving consumers. It becomes purely extractive. It becomes all about rent seeking. It's all about...
We're literally living in the worst rent-seeking extractive economy ever, thanks to Biden. Rent prices are through the roof. Leases are through the roof. Land prices are through the roof. New construction, higher than ever. Housing prices, higher than ever. Trump is threatening the Fed to bring down interest rates to lower home loans. Like, I'm kind of pissed here. I think Hank's doing a sleight of hand.
How much can we pull out of people? And this is not unusual. It's just that we don't usually see it in such fine-grained detail, where we don't see that like early on it's not bad for the economy. for stuff like this to happen. But it takes a while before you see the effect of the innovation slowing. It takes a while before you see the effect of upstarts not.
Innovation's not slowing. Innovation died 30 years ago in America. American industry's been on a lifeline for decades. It's been miserable.
Being able to break in. It takes a while before you see the effects of all this capital and talent getting wasted on the influence part of everything and not on the actual creation of products. But eventually,
That is a recent phenomenon I will accept.
that place becomes not dynamic. It becomes less resilient, less capable of real growth. And there's like a reason why corruption is bad. Like it's not just like a morality thing. It's bad for a society. Like there's a bunch of reasons. I just get over and over again. I start to like get the sense that we've forgotten that there's reasons why we don't like things. It's just like, oh well, yeah, we like say that this is bad, but when I like my guy's doing it, it's kind of okay. There's reasons why the bad things are bad. They hurt systems. They stop things from working. Corruption is the biggest kind of theft. It is the largest scale, society scale theft. And it is all about giving the powerful power.
You have made zero arguments for corruption anywhere at all in this entire 17 minutes. Jesus Christ, I am an hour and 10 into the stream, and I am 17 minutes into this video. This is going to take all night. You have made zero claims of corruption in the Trump presidency. You made like insinuations, I guess, maybe with the whole to the highest bidder type thing. I really, I'm going to start driving a stake here of, I don't remember anyone complaining about any of this during Biden's presidency. And no one even complained about this in Trump's first presidency that I can remember. And all I see right now is Trump, not even 2.0, it's like 1.5. Like he's barely doing anything more than he did last time.
Power to extract rent from the unpowerful, which is what everybody's.
Which is, again, literally all of this crap is collapsing thanks to the rent skyrockets of the Biden era. Cost of living shot up so hard during the Biden era, it will take 20 years for the actual economy to recover. Like, if rent didn't move up for another 20 years, it would take 20 years for inflation to drag rent back down to where it was before COVID.
Says is like the terrible thing about capitalism. And like, yeah, but that's not a symptom of a well-functioning market. In a good market, you move to somebody who's less extractive. That's why there are certain things like housing and healthcare that maybe shouldn't be purely market driven. And so I think this is all like.
I do agree. Socialized healthcare is not better, but private healthcare that just doesn't work anymore. It's at the end of its rope. We either have to institute some unbearable changes to private healthcare, or we have to socialize healthcare. Which would, once it's socialized, it'll immediately institute all those unbearable standards, which is basically a roundabout way of saying the same thing. Fat people are going to start dying. Like, you're going to go to a death board just like they have in the UK, where they say, yeah, you're killing yourself with the way that you live. We will give you this recommendation on how to not kill yourself with the way that you live, and if you don't do that, we're going to stop keeping you alive.
Worth taking seriously. And I'm certainly not the first person to identify that like we're sliding into an oligarchy, but the fact that it might help explain this weird phenomenon where we have a bunch of new frictions in the economy, but the economy is still doing well. I haven't seen anybody say that. And like, maybe I'm wrong. Like, I don't follow things that close. But even the weak version, like the back off button, is already enough to distort a bunch of incentives here. The strong version, however far we are along that spectrum, the like loyalty for protection version, that's how you build a country where the market is not a competition to serve people. It is a competition to serve power. And you,
even if this was true, Trump has 3 more years. Like, this is kind of this is a delusion based on the idea that Trump's not leaving in 3 years. And if anyone really thinks Trump's taking a 3rd term, I will laugh in your face. Like, for the love of God. He would have to crush the midterm so hard that he would have a supermajority in the Senate and the House of Representatives. And he would probably have to add those extra Supreme Court judges. So right now we have 9. They've been talking about upping it to 13 to match the 13 districts. He would have to pack the Supreme Court, pack the House, pack the Senate, somehow sweep the states in their own state elections so that he could start passing amendments. And once he could pass amendments, then he could run for a 3rd term. Like, this is beyond delusional. Like, people were calling January 6th an insurrection. Imagine what it would physically take Trump to do to physically get a 3rd term. It's a joke. Trump brings up his 3rd term to stir up Democrats in a frenzy because they look retarded when they think Trump is going to run a 3rd term.
Use that to suck resources out of people. And I think a lot of people do really think that that's like a normal thing to do. Like, as long as you can do it, do it. That's what capitalism is. No, it's not. That's oligarchy. And you could do that in a communist system. You could do it in a capitalist system. You can give a lot of people the power to control the levers and then extract everything out of people. And what you find in that system is that it sucks. I was going to say that it sucks all the energy and competitiveness out of economy, but like, let's just end it there. It sucks. Places where this happens do not have a bunch of people thriving in the middle class. But now I really have.
Yeah. And he contradicted himself in that same statement because he said, what did he say? Communists? And what else?
This system, you could do it in a capital. Do it. I think a lot of people do really think that that's like a normal thing to do. Like, as long as you can do it, do it. That's what capitalism is. No, it's not. That's oligarchy. And you could do that in a communist system. You could do it in a capitalist system. You can give a lot of people.
Oh, capitalists are communists. Yeah, you can't do the same things in a capitalist system as you can do in a communist system. And that's why fiction's based on a capitalist system turning into an effectively communist system. That's what Fallout's based on. It's like, what if it was capitalist? But the exact same thing happened. Like, that's the fiction Fallout's built on. It's basically communism, but it's not communism. The idea that communism and capitalism can both be corrupted, completely true. The idea that they are corrupted in the exact same way, delusional. Fictional. Never happened. Retarded.
The power to control the levers and then extract everything out of people. And what you find in that system is that it sucks. I was going to say that it sucks all the energy and competitiveness out of economy, but like, let's just end it there. It sucks. Places where this happens do not have a bunch of people thriving in the middle class. But now I really have gotten to the point where I feel like I'm talking out of my ass.
America is the only place with the middle class, by the way. Like a real middle class.
So,
like a middle class that matters.
I'd like to talk to an economist, somebody who thinks a lot about the weird and messy time that we are in America, and who I enjoy hearing from and learning from. So I'm going to publish this video as I just recorded it. I'm going to edit it up. I'm going to send it to Kyla Scanlon, and then hopefully we're going to cut and I will be having a conversation. Everybody, theoretically, this is Kyla Scanlon.
I think you have essentially covered what a lot of the major financial outlets have been talking about. Even in the first week of February, Ken Griffin of Citadel came out and essentially said what you were saying.
Of Citadel. So of mega corporations.
He's like, I'm really worried that the economy is bending a knee to the Trump family.
That alone contradicts his entire point of oligarchy, because if big business could buy Trump, they're not bending a knee to Trump, for one. And two, if the idea that capitalists can become oligarchs by sucking up to the members of power, then he wouldn't be worried about that. He'd be happy to do that.
They've really enriched themselves.
So they're wrong on every front. Like, this lady's assuming a person from Citadel is a virtuous humanitarian.
Economy is bending a knee to the Trump family. They've really enriched themselves. So the fact that somebody of
Who's they? Is they Trump, or is they the Citadel people?
that stature and somebody of that level of power is coming out and saying like, hey, it seems like there's some level of oligarchy going on.
Who has the most to gain? If you are a multi-billionaire, what do you have to gain by calling out a president for an oligarchy? You gain by diminishing his power. If he was an oligarchy and you're a multi-billionaire, what would you simply do if he was an oligarch? You'd buy him out. So if the billionaire class is pissed, why is this bad? Is my primary question. His credibility directly contradicts himself in this situation.
You're correct in your statement. Yeah.
I feel like the weak case is pretty.
He has everything to lose and nothing to gain. According to Hank's own, who the hell is Steve? According to Hank's own interpretation, he can only lose by saying that. Supposedly.
Pretty clear. The Trump administration desperately wants and needs the economy, or at least the stock market, to keep chugging along.
They need
because
stock
then
market.
the highest spenders and highest earners and highest wealth individuals will continue to spend, and that will keep some portion of the economy chugging along. I don't have confidence that
Is that not this very guy that you just quoted?
Trump could really make the stock market go up, but I have confidence that he could make it go down because I've seen him do it.
He does, yeah.
And then
Yeah, that's true.
when that happens,
I like it when it goes down. Call me an anarchist, but I cheer when the frickin' system burns at this point. I'm sick of it.
he's like, never mind, actually.
Taco.
3 points of stock market loss is actually way too much for me. Let's keep the thing going. So I think that that's very clear. But the part where maybe the economy is benefiting, or like the biggest companies in the economy, like, is there some portion of the finance industry that's like, these companies will be fine because like they have made it clear that they will bend the knee and that Trump will reward them for that?
I mean, I think
Now that I do think about it, several tech companies have bent the knee. They have all reached out and said that they will concede, especially like the Facebook, Instagram. I think they're under Meta now. They're both under Meta, aren't they? They both caved when they lost. I think that's less, well, I'm not going to dock this against Hank because I think personally this is because they were diehard Biden farmers and they lost and they were desperate to not get screwed over by Trump when retribution came. So this is less of a gain good favor and more of a run from punishment type event.
some of them are struggling.
End result's the same. I'm not going to dock Hank on anything.
So the Trump administration took a large percentage of Intel. Intel stock went up on the news and has since suffered quite a bit. And so I don't think it's like a guarantee that if you do a big deal with Trump that you're going to be free sailing.
So this is a good refutation of Hank right here, which is what I've also been saying.
Yeah.
But he has made it very much an easy environment for the AI companies to succeed.
I've also said this. So yes, I also agree. I think he's going too easy on the AI. At the very least, he should be taking a slice of the pie for the American government. And he should definitely be putting in some like anti-Chinese stuff in there. Like, screw China. Screw West Taiwan.
And that's such a big percentage of the economy. Like it's like 40% of GDP growth last year, 75% of S&P 500's earnings. So like the stock market, it's like driving so much stock market growth. And so I think there is this assumption if you're a technology company and you get along well with the Trump administration, you'll be free from some regulation. And that's why.
She's completely right. I have zero. Yeah, she's completely right. Can't dispute any of that. And I am mad at Trump for that. I will say that right off the bat. I think Trump should be much harder on all tech companies because that is the only thing that will allow Intel or an American-based AMD to thrive.
You saw all of
these tech companies were built off the back of American intellectualism and then were sold off to Taiwan and to Asia for the lowest bidder, for pennies on the dollar. And I will never stop being pissed at boomers.
the big tech tech leaders at his inauguration. It's why Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos did the Melania movie for millions and millions of dollars and then turned around and fired 30% of Washington Post staff.
Those two have nothing to do with each other. Washington Post doesn't make movies. Melania apparently made some money. I don't know. I saw like one commercial for it and that's it.
There's this idea that, yeah, if you get in the correct way in your tech company, you'll be relatively safe. And I think that's the only people that they can really promise it to. Like, there's been a big push in the Trump administration for manufacturing, but manufacturing has enormously suffered underneath Trump because of the tariffs. So it's really only tech, and that's kind of okay in their eyes because tech is such a big part of the economy.
Is it mostly a big part of the
She is right on that.
stock market, or is it a big part of the economy?
It's a big part of GDP growth. So it's a big part of the economy in
So a
what
big
the
part of
economy is
growth.
based on.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes. And it's where a lot of financing is going. So data center bonds are a huge part of the bond market currently. And AI companies are taking out a ton of debt, which is usually a little bit of a red flag. Yeah.
Well, tech companies are known for their extremely high debt ratios and never actually making money. Like, it's always been a sinkhole with these tech companies.
Yeah. So it's a
Doesn't make it good. Just means it's par for the course.
big part of the economy in terms of growth, but not a big part of the economy in terms of jobs. So, like, most jobs being added are in healthcare and social services, which do not get the same sort of investment that
Sure.
AI is getting. Yeah.
In part because like all of that's, relatively low margin in the long term, because
Did he just say medical is low margin?
Same sort of investment that
Sure.
AI is getting. Yeah.
in part because like all of that's, relatively low margin in the long term, because of the people, because of the jobs. And if you have
Because
to
of
pay a
labor.
bunch of people to do the work, then that costs money, and as people's salaries go up, that costs more money, and that's all stuff that we want, but it cuts into the margin.
Yes.
Okay, so I think he's making an argument on AI replaces people, so it's technically a higher profit margin because there's no personnel costs. So, while it is, I would say, erroneous to say that it's a low profit margin for the medical industry, I understand what he's saying. I think he said that poorly, but I can forgive it.
Whereas the tech industry traditionally, even before AI, has been like tremendously, like world-shakingly different in terms of the number of jobs created per the number of dollars created. So like far fewer jobs per number of dollars made. But then AI
That's why it gets so much investment, is because you get that huge return on investment if you strike gold.
is like a whole nother level of that, where it's like, well,
Like, I'm sure if you looked at successful gold mines 100 years ago, you'd see the same, or 150 years ago probably now, you'd see the same stats. Like, a couple of gold mines were making the equivalent of $10 million per miner. But most of them didn't. That's how Gold Rush is paying out.
maybe the software can do all of the jobs, which is maybe not entirely untrue. I think there's actually a lot of jobs that will be done by AI.
Yeah, that's the big.
This is
Like tremendously,
it's kind of a gripe.
like world-shakingly different in terms of the number of jobs created per the number of dollars created. So like far fewer jobs per number of dollars made. But then AI is like a whole nother level of that, where it's like, well, maybe the software can do all of the jobs, which is maybe not entirely untrue. I think there's actually a lot of jobs that will be done by AI.
Yeah.
They will try to automate everything they can, and they will increasingly find it impossible to automate a job. If you have to run an AI server to replace a McDonald's cashier, your electrical costs, your water cooling costs, your maintenance costs, it's not feasible. you have a better chance of replacing, like, as we've seen, like, lately, AI code is more likely to replace software engineers than it is to replace McDonald's cashier, because not because it's easier to be easier to be a software engineer, it's because it's more expensive for a company to have a software engineer, so it's cheaper to buy an AI instead of a software engineer. You can't replace most of the things that a human does cost effectively digitally. Not with the current architecture that we have. It's a literal architectural barrier. Synchronized clocks are a barrier. x64 architecture is a barrier. Silicon wafers are a barrier. Like, we have to move away from all of those things. What's the famous Matrix saying? The human brain produces as much electricity as an 80-watt light bulb. It produces 80 watts. Your brain consumes like 25% of your body's oxygen, and your computer consumes like 10 times that amount of energy per day. And your computer can't replace you. I'm talking about like your little computer desktop. Like, here, real fast. Your body, your entire body runs on... Why is it saying kilo? You run on 2,000 kilocalories a day. It's gonna be some freaking weird number. Yep. You run on 167 kilocalories per hour. Your entire body is 200 watts. Your brain is a quarter of that. Your entire nervous system is a 50-watt system. Your power supply on your computer is probably 500 watts. Which makes your... Yeah, I was right. 500 times. Or sorry, not 500. 10 times the electricity.
Yeah, that's the big scare in the market right now. Anthropic, which is one of the top AI labs, released this like legal AI assistant, and the stock market had a pretty big sell-off across the software companies because everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, if they can make this legal assistant, they can make any software obsolete."
I do think AI will replace legal assistants, specifically because legality is a matter of paperwork. The word of the law is defined as the word of the law. And that uniquely makes a large language model, a LLM, a written language model system, able to replace it. And I do think it would do a better job than most lawyers because it can decipher the 10 bajillion pages of BS bureaucratic law that any government these days has. There's too many pages of law is the problem. If your legal system could be read in a year by a reasonable person, then you wouldn't need an AI to do it. But you have to build a cabinet 3 feet deep, 10 feet tall, 5 feet wide, 4 feet wide, whatever the heck it is, 3 feet wide, consuming 10,000 watts of energy and 10 gallons of water a day just to frickin' compute the literal words on a page. This is not a AI is great. This is the legal system is crap. You used to have lawyers. That's what you did. You would be a lawyer. You would practice law. And now the law has gotten so out of control that you have 10,000 types of lawyers. You have civil lawyers, criminal lawyers, defense lawyers, prosecutional lawyers, patent lawyers, copyright lawyers, trademark lawyers. You have so many different lawyers, it's ridiculous because the law is ridiculous. And AI is what you need 10 you need 100 or 200 or 300 processor cores processing 10,000 words a second to literally read the code that is the legal code.
Which I think is a little bit overstated. But what was also interesting about that is all of the major asset managers sold off because private equity and private credit have so much exposure to software. And that really complicates where the stock market has to go and software maintaining its very high valuation.
Yeah. So all these software as a service companies that you never hear about, you have no idea they exist. Private equity is very exposed to them, and they are very big.
And so are regular investors. There's something called business development companies. Private equity has, or private credit has rolled up to allow mom and pop investors to get some exposure to junk bonds. And that
junk bonds. Yeah. Software as a service is a suicidal endeavor for any company.
It's great.
Complicated. Yeah. It's getting like really spooky.
I have this sense, and correct
She is rightfully pointing that out.
me if I'm wrong, that there's a lot of money out there.
There's a lot of money.
So like Apple has a lot of money. Warren Buffett is sitting on a big pile of cash. I think that there's a lot of high net worth folks who have money and they're not sure what to invest it in. And for a second there, it was like, everybody got to get into the AI. But now you're saying AI companies are taking on debt. And that to me indicates that
they started out as debt.
They can't sell their just shares first.
It was never profitable. The moment that you have to pay to do a query on a AI system, 90% of your market base flees and goes to the next nearest free one. A lot of these AI models you can run home serve for, sure, it's like substantially slower, like you're looking at a minute instead of second responses, but for the low price of free, like, yeah, your electric bill is going to go up, but it's not going to go up hundreds of dollars. You're not going to notice the difference. AI models can fundamentally only exist using their consumer base as product. So the AI user is the product, and they have to sell something to that product. They can try advertisers, they can try government agencies, they can try propaganda machines, the DNC, the RNC, whatever. But you're not going to make money off of your average user. And your average user is going to cost you way more per use of the system than you will gain from an average user buying a premium subscription to an AI company. I've probably cost XAI $1,000 by using it, and I've never paid a cent to this company.
Super expensive and raise that money that way.
Their valuations are pretty inflated, so they're turned into the debt market.
They've already gotten about as high as it's gone about as far as it can go, as they say.
It's pretty high, yeah.
The question I keep noodling on, and so every time something, I'm like anchored to it right now. And so every time like something comes along, I'm like, does this explain my question? But the question is just like, why is the economy still going hot? It seems like things are fine. And I don't mean the stock market. Like I went to the mall this weekend and the mall was full of people shopping and going to the arcade. Like the arcade where my son loves to go was sweaty in there. There was so many people running around. I was like,
I think that's what you're going to see more and more of as this trend continues. People are pulling out of these digital systems because the digital systems are being played by other digital systems. Pretty soon, every resume you find online will be AI generated. Every web page will be AI generated. Every reference will be AI generated, every article AI generated, and it will be so impossible to find anything of value created in that it's going to dissolve itself. You're going to hand your resume into a person by hand, print it out on a piece of paper, so that they know you're a real person. Job postings will be posted on a billboard by a real person, because otherwise everyone will think the job is AI generated. Everything, all your chat boards, all your chat rooms will be AI driven, populated by AI bots, and so they'll disappear and you'll find people meeting up, because if you're in person, you're not an AI. And so you're going to see a revival of these markets, these shopping malls, arcades, that type of stuff, because a arcade machine isn't running an AI model. And if it did, you'd move on to the next arcade machine. And the food court's not running an AI algorithm trying to predict which food you want next or how much it can charge you for that food. It just has prices out.
I gotta leave. I feel like I'm gonna get COVID in here. It's very hard to tell when you're on the internet because, of course, the internet story is always going to be the scariest story. Nobody's going to talk about how they're doing well. That's not going to be, fun to say.
Yes.
For one, because there's always people who are not doing well.
Sure.
And so we're somewhat dependent on government data. We're somewhat dependent on lots of analysts doing analyst stuff to figure out if things are going okay. Does it seem like things are going okay?
I mean, I've been studying this phenomenon of the sort of disconnect between consumer sentiment, so how people are saying that they feel, and then broad economic data for a long time, because people will say that they're feeling really bad, but they'll go out and spend. Like retail spending is up, consumer credit, people are using their credit cards actively. They're spending money on all sorts of things. We're seeing them spend a lot more on, like food, groceries, rent versus maybe clothes right now. The economy is pretty substantially weakening. But the United States has a lot of access to credit, and so people have a lot of access to credit. And so I think the theory that a lot of people will float with the strength in the economy is that people are able to use their credit cards, able to use products like Klarna, which allow you to pay in installments. But then also a lot of the spending and a lot of the growth outside of the anecdotes is from higher income consumers. So 10% of Americans, the top 10% wealthiest, drive over half of consumer spending. And so that is also keeping the economy afloat and ties into your asset.
I did not realize that was as big of a deal as it was until I saw the 2023 being only a third. So I am genuinely concerned about that. But for the rest of it, Klarna, atrocious predatory loan, next day loan, check advance type crap scams, that should be absolutely outlawed. But I mean, ever since I started family, I've floated a high credit card bill. My biggest thing is I pay my credit card bill off at the end of every month before it accrues interest. And if you can do that, then you're fine. You're not really floating credit, and you have access to it. So as long as you manage it correctly, it's like playing a game. It's kind of hard. It's not really the best, but I think I still stand behind the idea that the lower guys are doing okay. The poorer people, the lower half. Especially if you go out to a rural area in the middle of the day on a weekday, it is bustling. Small towns aren't dying anymore. They seem to be growing out. You see small towns, especially small towns, I'm talking 300 houses for the entire town are renovating. Every single house that you can tell hasn't been given a paint job since not the 60s, but the 80s or the 90s. It's been decades that these houses have been neglected, and all of a sudden they're prime real estate. And I think that means something. That means that people are able to afford things again. Like the small guy is able to afford things again.
Price theory where everybody's assets have exploded in value over the past couple of years. If you own a home, if you own tech stocks, so people are wealthy because of that, and so they're able to go and spend money in that way, and so that does provide a floor to the economy right now. Does that answer your question?
Well, the idea that you're selling stocks to fund your lifestyle is inherently unsustainable because that implies that you're not buying stocks to replace those stocks. Like, if you're selling stocks and then buying the exact same stocks to replace those, then you're not really selling your stocks. What she's implying is that you're selling stocks. When you have an income, you're selling your stocks to artificially inflate your income in the short term, and then you don't have those stocks again for the next round of needing stocks. So that whole idea of selling stocks is a short-term plug, which at the very least, I'd say after a year of Trump, that should have kind of run out. I would argue even more after 4 years of Biden economy, you should have run out of stocks to sell off. And I would argue even more that if you're selling off stocks now, you're not frivolously spending like she's implying. So I don't think this whole we're selling stocks to float the economy thing pans out.
Oh, it gives me great context. Yes. I don't think there's an answer to it, but yes,
I don't
it
think
gives me
so
great
either.
context. It does feel like the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was tying absolutely everything to the price of these of the stock market. This is like, let's have everybody's retirements be based on that. Let's have everybody.
I hate everything that boomers did to this country. Goddamn. I can't think of one good thing they did. Pisses me off so much. Pensions. Pensions used to be a thing. And yeah, they did kill some companies. And you know what? That's fine. Let them die when they're small companies. Because their owners died. Their grandkids pissed away the company fortune. Companies shouldn't last forever. Get your pension, get your pay, do your time, go home. Now we live in a world where your average employee stays at a job for like 2 years. Pensions, you had people that were there for 40.
Let's have the entire economy be based on 10% of wealthy people feeling like they can spend whatever on whatever. Does that feel like the
economy's always been dependent on the top 10%? If not for half of spending, but just whatever the hell they wanted.
Achilles heel right now? Like if asset prices drop substantially, people suddenly get conservative and that becomes a reinforcing loop?
I think that's a worry. Yeah, I think that's a big worry, is that if the stock market does drop, a lot of people's wealth doesn't come from labor income anymore. It comes from owning stocks or owning a home. The Federal Reserve has a pretty good wealth breakdown on their website, and they show this, like, for the top 10%, most of their wealth is coming from things that they own or businesses that they own, not from like money that they're making through a job. The whole like wealth effect is important to maintaining the economy, which comes from these high asset prices. And so if the stock market does go down or experience a correction, there is a concern that, yes, people would stop spending and it would cause a pretty big contraction in the economy. There's something called a K-shaped economy. So in some parts of the economy, this is already happening. So for lower income consumers that are having a harder time, living paycheck to paycheck, their wages have not grown nearly as much as higher income consumers. They don't own the same assets. They're not as likely to own a house because we don't build enough housing.
Completely ancillary, but I'd just like to point out that according to the Democrats, Trump's deporting those people.
They're already
thereby removing them from the American economy and removing that issue.
Kind of in a recession type environment, whereas wealthier consumers are more insulated because of the high asset prices.
What do I know? But it just seemed to be like there's like a lot of weaknesses. Like there's a lot of weak points. It doesn't seem rational to me. Like the sort of like shape of the economy doesn't, in a way that like economies I know that the economists say this. They're like supposed to be rational. Like they're supposed to be this
Yes,
system, this
supposedly.
like series of like people acting in their self-interests and making decisions that make sense. But like, I mean, if we just like pick micro examples, it's very easy to say that there are not like super irrational things out there. And this has been the case for, I don't know when this sort of meme stock phenomenon began, but it seemed like for quite a while where we're just sort of like, yeah, the thing that you have to understand about Tesla is that it's not about Tesla. It's about everyone thinking the price of Tesla is going to go up
Mhm.
because they think that people are going to buy more Tesla, not about the value, not about the like delivered, not really about Optimus or whatever. It's about it's about like the vibes around the stock.
Yeah.
And there's like, if that can be that way for one of the most valuable companies in the stock market, like we're not talking about GameStop here. There's a huge amount of value tied up in there. And it does seem very Ponzi to me. It seems like, well, you have to buy it because it's going to go up. And it's going to go up because you have to buy it.
I mean, you could argue the same thing for crypto. And this idea, have you heard of reflexivity? Have you heard of that word?
No.
So that's a concept that George Soros coined in the latter half of the 1900s. And it was essentially that idea that people would believe something is going to happen. So they'd go and buy up whatever they thought was going to happen. So stock going up. And then that would cause the stock price to go up. So it's essentially
tulips.
that
That's the faith element I mentioned earlier. It's essentially operating on religious faith.
idea.
It's
Yeah.
tulips.
It's the bubble mentality, you know? And so it's a very human.
It's the bubble mentality, but Tesla has been this way for a long time.
Bubbles can last a long time.
Oh, I don't like that.
I mean, they can last as long as
This
as
is so
people have
frustrating
money.
because I wanna buy at the top, Kyla.
The ironic part is that Tesla was entirely built on all of the liberal Elon bros. Way back when Elon was considered liberal and all the essentially Reddit worshipped him until he came out for Trump. It was wild the flip that they did on Elon, which is why he's so radically right-wing now, is that he got burned so bad. But that's what propped up Tesla to begin with. Like, no one thought Tesla was going to work except for the Reddit bros and the crypto bros. And they funded Tesla for like 20 years. Well, is Tesla even 20 years old? They did it for like 10 years. And now what it's funded on mostly is service work, really, like service charges on current Tesla owners. They're extracting wealth from their own owners. I never thought Tesla was a viable endeavor. I never think EVs as they are now probably aren't viable. I think maybe with the Gigafactory that Tesla put up, they might be generating enough low-cost lithium cells to really put a dent in their costs. But I still think it's pretty dicey for them as a company. It's like a sales pitch. I think it's pretty rough. But I will say, I bought that dip when people started firebuying Teslas. I bought so much Tesla stock. I bought like 3 stock. And then I sold it right when it peaked. And I felt so good. It literally made up for like $200 loss in Donald Trump shitcoin I bought.
You
And
want to buy
sell
at
at
the
the
top.
bottom. Oh, I know. I want to sell it.
You wanna
Sorry,
do-
sorry. I want to do the opposite
I'm
of
gonna
that.
make no money.
Because I want to know when the bubble's going to pop so that I can buy puts or options or whatever the thing is that you make money when
Yeah.
things go down.
Well, then you get into Keynes, right? Markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. That's
That's an important one.
John Maynard
I should
Keynes.
tattoo that on the inside of my eyelids. Yeah.
It's a good one, yeah. So that's the other funny thing is like economists and market analysts have been talking about these ideas forever, but because there is so much access, which is both a good and bad thing, like you can buy whatever you want on Robinhood, there's much more exposure to bubbles.
I dumped all my Robinhood holdings after the whole GameStop thing. I was so pissed about that.
And everybody can participate in one. You know, crypto has proven itself, I think, to be a bubble in some aspects of the products that it offers, like Fartcoin. And yeah,
Did you say
that's
fart coin?
Oh, you haven't heard of Fartcoin? Are you really? Oh no. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
I find myself
I'm
watching too
sorry I
many
brought it
videos about
up.
astrophysics, I guess.
That's much better for your brain. Yeah, Fartcoin was this. It was actually a top performing asset last year.
Oh no. This is a really cute moment in the video, I'm gonna be honest.
Is it?
Fartcoin. You can see it in her eyes. The pain behind the eyes of Fartcoin.
Continue to be this year, or has
No.
the
And the ignorance behind the eyes of someone that hasn't seen our Fartcoin. The bliss.
The big sell off, the
Fart
bubble
roll.
popped. Yeah.
the fart bubble popped?
Exactly. But there's a lot of stuff like that, like these things that'll happen and then everybody will pile into it. Trump coin is kind of another example too.
Oof, I feel called out now.
Even though that ended up being a way for people to skirt the legal system and to pay him bribes to get out of jail, like Justin Sun did, using Trump coin as a way to.
I mean, that also, I have a theory that we forgot why corruption is bad because we were too focused on the fact that corruption is bad. And I think that this is true of a lot of different things in society where we talk about why, like, thing bad, but we've talked about it being bad for so long.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the Liberal Party. They can't explain why on anything.
That we lost touch with the why behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And corruption is a good example of this, where we're kind of just like, well, yeah, like ultimately we kind of hired a guy who's, a wheeler and a dealer, and like corruption is going to be like a little part of that. But like corruption's bad for like a reason, which is that it is stealing from everyone else.
And other countries.
Corruption is like stealing from everyone who's not involved in the corruption.
From the American people.
And that, of course, like leads to an eventual like corrosion of trust in all institutions, which, of course, has been going on for a while.
Well, if you think about the thing that's backing the U.S. dollar, it's full faith and credit in the American institution, and a big part of that. The big part of that is
I really don't want that to be the Achilles heel.
Oh, sorry, the dollar.
The American institution, which of course it is, but I want it to be a well-shielded Achilles heel. That isn't weak.
It should be. It was designed to not be weak.
It seemed impervious until 10 years ago.
I know.
2016? No, it felt impervious until about 2020 to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you
now it feels like there's there's arrows from every direction headed toward this little boy, and maybe the shields.
There's been a lot of people out for America for, God, I was about to say 1970, and then I remember the Cold War. When has America not known someone trying to get it prior to Pearl Harbor? There's been someone after America since Pearl Harbor. Some of them substantial threats like Germany and Japan. Some of them unsubstantial threats like any shithole in the Middle East.
Shields are not as strong as we thought they were.
Yeah, I mean, they're auxiliary institutions is what James Madison called it, like this idea that we would have all of these protection points, the Supreme Court, Congress, as a way to prevent a strongman from coming in. And like the founders knew something like this would happen one day. They knew that there would be a personality.
It's happened multiple times. Review Andrew Jackson.
That could take over through the power of whatever he has, and they designed it so that there would be institutions that would hopefully stop it, but objectively the institutions seem to be quite complacent now.
That's not a failing of Trump, that's a failing of these institutions. The Supreme Court historically, lately, the last couple of decades, and the Senate and the Congress have been limp-wristed, and they've been happy to give authority over to the president. They have been happy to abdicate their duty, and I am happy if they reclaim it. But you can't blame any of this on Trump. This is a, Bush 1 era problem?
They can just sort of throw insults rather than addressing like real questions that people have about why things are functioning the way that they do. And it creates a very toxic media environment where there is incentive to lie. Everything is being run by a reality TV show.
This is a big thing that I'm trying to make a long video about, and it just keeps getting out of hand. The size of the video, it may turn into several videos, which is annoying.
Hashtag I am supposed to be done with this video, and I'm at 2 hours now.
Because then they get put on the back burner, and it's important. But that is something I actually feel qualified to talk on, is sort of like the structure of how information flows, because that's my job, you know? I'm like, how do I get attention on ideas? How do I get attention on fish evolution or, you know, the weird economy of the Trump era? I want to, let's get back on a little more of your area of expertise to finish up. If you could give me like the 3 leading reasons, because of course we'll never get to the bottom of exactly what's going on. Maybe in hindsight we'll have some idea, but 3 leading reasons why the economy appears to be chugging along just fine right now. What would you call those 3 leading reasons?
I mean, I think there's the wealth effect. So you have asset prices that have skyrocketed. So a lot of people have really benefited from the stock market boom. And then I think that also ties into housing. So boomers have an extraordinary amount of wealth, and they're willing.
Which is why Donald Trump is out here being like, we can't make the house prices go down.
We can't.
People worked hard, like not for these people who.
Oh yeah, crash the housing market, send it, meteorite it right into the frickin' Mariana Trench. Get rid of it all.
Who aren't working very hard, so that people who don't work very hard can have a house.
Yeah,
and it's like, you don't think who's not working very hard right now, buddy?
Oh my gosh! And then who are they going to sell it to? Because people won't be able to afford that.
The best take I've seen on the housing market is once the boomers die off, housing market will realign itself entirely, and all of the wealth that boomers supposedly are going to die with in their houses is going to be worth absolutely nothing, because as soon as they die, prices are going to go back to what they should be, because there's going to be 10 million boomer homes on the sale. And once 10 million boomer homes are on sale that are, 40-year-old houses, outdated electricity, outdated furniture, outdated flooring, outdated walls, outdated XYZ, these houses are propped up by the banks. So they're not really worth what they say they are. The banks are propping up the housing values so that when the houses get resold, they get a higher loan on that sale. And yeah, the housing market's in for a crash. And I really want it to crash. I want it to crash so bad. I'm going to buy like 3 slums when it crashes.
Aquaman.
Yeah. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the AI trade, I think, is providing like a floor to the market and therefore a floor to the economy, data center spending, services spending.
I swear to God, if this third thing is also a thing against Trump, I'm going to be pissed, because it sounds like the entire economy is propped up on what Trump is bitching out on.
So that's creating a lot of economic power. And then I think the third thing is maybe a part of it is that there is that availability of credit. So people have
thank God.
Have access to things like Klarna. They're able to take out things on their credit cards.
There's just new credit tools.
There's a lot of, and so some people are getting a little overextended, and we're starting to see that in the data, especially with auto loans. But yeah, I would say those are the 3 things kind of propping things up right now. Yeah.
Those don't seem like particularly solid pillars.
No, I mean, ideally people would be able to buy a house with their labor income, and then ideally the whole 401k business wouldn't be just entirely tied up into, like, people would have a different way to retire, so it's not inflating the stock market in the way that it is now, and we'd have investment diversification outside of AI. I mean, I just worry about how many resources we're funneling toward this one thing, and we don't even know if we'll need.
She is obviously a competent economist, because I can't disagree with much of what she said.
data centers. Like it might evolve to the
Yeah.
point where the things are so efficient that they don't need these huge structures.
Things could get more like that's tends to be how it goes, but
Yeah.
these big companies have the money to spend. Like Google's like, "Oh, finally, something to spend money on."
Yeah.
We have lots of that. If we can win just by having money, that would be huge for us because we can have money and we know how to build data centers. And then, you know, the startups I think will have a hard time competing in that environment. But you know, the OpenAIs and the Anthropics.
Oh,
But I think
yes.
also like the more money that they spend, the more valuable their companies are. Like the more it's all about money, the more it's all about money.
Yeah, but there's some drama going on because of the circular financing. So OpenAI and Nvidia aren't getting
Yeah,
along
and
so well right now. Yeah.
yeah, and suddenly Oracle's like, I didn't promise
That was
anything.
so funny. My shirt.
Yeah, oh, perfect pausing point. That's funny. Yeah, AI is a bubble and it's gonna pop hard. I am so ready for it to pop too. I'm so over the whole AI fad crap. I think it'll have its niches. It'll probably replace lawyers. Mostly lawyers. Lawyers are getting replaced. Lawyers have because that's not replacing lawyers doesn't require generating anything. It requires reading existing documentation and drawing a conclusion from it. Coders, I don't think will be replaced. Maybe you'll get rid of like some of your low tier crap, but for the most part, code is generating something new that didn't exist before, and humans are better at that, especially when humans are going to be the ones that have to review and monitor and maintain it over the long term. You're never going to entrust your billion-dollar factory code to an AI. You're going to have some person responsible for that. Same thing with most service industry, most blue collar work. You're not going to get an AI to go out into an oil field, find a leak, and patch it. Just good luck with that if you think you can do that. You're not going to find one to find a down power pole and get it to put a new power pole in its place. Good luck with that. You'll find it replacing. I've heard about it replacing doctors, which I thought was pretty neat. There is good evidence that it can better identify diseases and issues from an x-ray than a human can, and that has a lot to do with the fact that the AI can read every single pixel rather than be restricted to the printout size of the page that a doctor is restricted to when printing out an x-ray or MRI or whatever. Like an AI can parse through pixel by pixel, bit by bit, whereas a human eye can't. So there is advantages there. So as a diagnostic tool, I think AI might have an advantage. Given that human trials will probably always be conducted by humans, maybe some of the data will be reviewed by AI. I don't think prescription will ever fall under AI. So medical treatment will still be under human control. You might get like a surgeon that does minor operations as an AI, but you'll always have another surgeon like right there, and the AI will have to send him like a 10-minute video of what it plans to do next, and he'll have to have his thumb right there on the e-stop. So you'll be paying a surgeon the same amount either way, so you'll just have a surgeon. Other businesses that'll be replaced, accounting. Accounting shouldn't exist as it is now. That should be replaced by Excel documentation. The only reason why it exists is that the hell's the tax company? The tax companies lobbied the American government to keep the tax code so TurboTax were so ridiculous that you need a tax company to do taxes for you. Accounting is a dead field. Those are probably the main three really that I can think of. Like, it has to be 100% word-based ingestion and comprehension and 0% creativity for an AI to actually do it, because AIs aren't creative. Everyone says that AI is going to replace like all these different things, but any creative endeavor, AI will always pull in second. They're like, oh yeah, it'll replace Hollywood though. AI, who said Hollywood was creative? They come out with like 4 more Terminators. They made a new Harry Potter. They made like they do nothing but derivative works. There hasn't been an original IP in Hollywood in like a decade. Okay. I got called out by, well, I don't think I got called out, but I got commented on, replied to, on a reply that I sent Phil Labonte. Love him on Timcast. He tends to be pretty good. And I shit post too much, so I probably won't find it. Maybe this. Nope. Nope. I follow Phil. Oh, yep, there it is. So the idea that coding will be replaced by AI is a load of horse crap. First of all, AIs are programmed on what they've ingested already. So the idea that you can learn to code a 30-year-old piece of equipment that has never been documented anywhere, because it was before companies had web pages to document these things. The idea that you're going to redo all this from first principles is crazy. Most industrial equipment has a lifespan of 50 plus years, which means that most industrial equipment today is pre-internet. You're not going to replace my factory's bespoke hydraulic presses that have I'm not going to get any more into that. You're not going to replace my company's presses that existed long before I was born and have code that is in 3 different languages across 4 different systems, 3 of which are end of life. So you can't train an AI on these systems. And because you can't train an AI on these systems, you have to throw out all the systems and buy brand new systems. That's too freaking expensive these days. That's hundreds of millions of dollars of stuff that would have to be just tossed out for the sake of an AI generated code base versus hiring on a halfway decent engineer, paying them $120,000 a year and having them keep it alive for another 10 years. Another 10 years at 120K is 1.2 million. Factor in business costs, call it 2.4 million. Versus $100 million to replace it all. The economics will never work out on AI, because by the time all these systems have cycled out and we have new systems that were post-internet, post-AI, I guess, AI models aren't going to be trained on that anymore. AI models are inherently short-term lived items. AIs you don't have a 60s AI, a 70s AI, an 80s AI. You don't have any AI that goes radical dude or says tubular or says the FAG cigarette word referring to a cigarette, because AIs are instantaneously localized individuals. You can't stretch that out over a 30-year time span. I've yet to see an AI that can date back 30 years.
Sure answers the question you're asking type.
I want to finish this video so bad. I've never finished a YouTube video on one of these streams.
Why would you tweet that? Like, what a red flag. They were like, oh, everything's fine.
Did that come out of nowhere? Were they not
Yeah.
asking?
No, they essentially like started this whole domino effect, and they were like, everything's fine, and then everyone was like, surely nothing's fine if Oracle is like saying this.
But it sounds like you wouldn't put like uh everybody feels like Donald Trump will keep the economy rolling, whatever the cost, as one of the pillars here.
He'll keep the stock market rolling, whatever the cost. Yeah, and that's not always reliant on the economy doing well.
Sure, but you think that that is a thing that like some people in the world of finance are relying on. Donald Trump being like a ruthless will keep the stock market up no matter what kind of leader.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I think they're getting sick of it. Like the taco stuff, Trump always chickens out. So he'll like
Yeah.
announce these major tariffs, the stock market will sell off. I don't know how much more power he'll have in that stance. And
Do you
some
think
of
you
the
might have burned a lot of that ability?
especially internationally, you know, if the EU doesn't want to buy treasuries, we're in trouble. They own 40% of US treasuries. So
And
I
that's
think
treasuries being a way that we fund our national debt.
finance, yeah, yes, yeah, the main way that we fund
Yeah.
all of the spending that the US does. So if the US can't fund all this spending, you know, the government
Or has to
becomes
pay a higher interest rate to fund it.
right, exactly. And then that's not good either. So I think everyone's like, this doesn't maybe make sense. And I think Ken Griffin
Yeah, deficit spending never makes sense, and I hate whenever it happens.
from Citadel is the canary in the coal mine there.
This is dumb for me to ask at the end here, but are the tax breaks a part of this? Like, are rich people just able to spend more because they have more because of the tax breaks?
Yeah. Yeah. And they're pretty successful at bending the tax law to their
Already,
will.
yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, so that's what she's saying right there. Is the previous tax code was already chock full of loopholes, so they're not really making any more, and she's just trying to say this in a not right-wing coded way because she doesn't want to threaten her position.
it's, fewer taxes spent.
Well, yeah. I mean, what I'll say is, like, as a high earner who also has a high net worth, like the earnings, just they get taxed a lot, and like that's fine. But like, what I see is that the money that comes from my investments doesn't
No.
get taxed a lot, and so
That what he just said there was true for the last 50 years.
like, I don't know. I've asked seemingly progressive billionaires about this, and I'm like, why do I pay so much like lower taxes on money I don't work for? And they're like the risk, and I'm like, also labor is a risk. What the f- are you talking about?
my goodness.
Like choosing what company to work for is a risk. Companies go out of business. Sometimes they treat you terribly. Like you invest a lot in them, and then they can just lay you off. Like it's like risk everywhere, not just for you, rich man.
Yeah.
There's lots of risk. And so like labor is also risk. I don't
Yes.
understand. Like the idea that capital gains should be taxed at a lower rate. I like maybe there's like some argument there that I don't get, but man,
Well-
like am I being incentivized to stop creating value and instead just sit there and look at Robinhood all day?
The reason why capital gains isn't taxed is that if you even taxed it at like pennies on the dollar, like 1%, within 50 years, all the wealth would be gone. Like, the idea with capital gains or capital wealth is that it's not the risk, it's that it's not really technically growing. If you take 1% away from it, you're not taking 1% away from the total, you're taking 1% away from the growth rate of it. As soon as you take, so if you take 10% off, you're not taking 10% off $1 billion, you're taking 10% off $1 billion today, and 10% off $100 billion that you'd get, or not 100 billion, $100 million that you get next year, and then taking 20% off because you've taken 10% twice now, so 20% off the $10 million you would have gotten off that, and then 30% off the $1 million, and then 40% off the 100,000, and very quickly you see this spiral out in a Fibonacci sequence to zero.
Yes, you are. There was a good article in the FT that said that we have become a place of shareholder rights over civic rights.
That is a separate problem entirely, and yes, shareholder rights need to be revoked.
And I think that the taxation system encapsulates that well.
Well, that makes me mad.
Yeah, I mean, it's like by design. And so it's not great. It doesn't incentivize the right things, especially right now with all the financial nihilism and people not trusting that getting a job will do them any good. So they just go and sports gamble and do prediction markets and stuff. Yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to end on that
No,
sad of a
it's
note.
it's kind of like every lane you go down, there's some sad note these days. But I have a lot of hope. I'm hopeful.
Okay.
Like,
Well,
in
then
the
give me with
US
that. Where do you feel your hope comes from?
I mean, I've been traveling the country for the past year with my book, and I meet people in all these cities, and I meet people who are working really hard on these problems that we're talking about, like how do you make a better world? And a lot of that does happen at the local level right now. Like we focus a lot on the federal problems in the news because they are so big, but what people are doing in local communities is like very important and very impressive, and you just have to believe in those people right now, and that they'll pull us through.
What I'll say to people, and like I know I'm talking from a place of just a huge amount of privilege here, but I do think that and maybe this message is more for the rich people than so if you have more money than average, hear this. Like, I think that it is much more interesting to be out here making value than out here like moving dollars around. So if there's like ways for you to be in the mix, be in the mix. And
All that's saying is, yeah, it's a lot more fun to actually participate.
And also, if there's ways for your money to be in the mix, instead of just sitting in your accounts, if it's like out there doing good, try and figure out how to get it out there doing good. Pick a number, figure out where that is, and then get the rest of it out there doing good. Because it's doing nothing sitting in your accounts. It's doing nothing propping up a stock market that's already overvalued. Just get it out. And like there's so much good that can be done out there, and like figure that out in your local community, internationally, nationally, wherever.
He's just offering philanthropy, which is good, but it's not new.
There's a lot of lessons to learn from the robber barons, like Carnegie.
There's a lot of lessons to learn from the robber barons.
That was a line that got me too.
Like libraries, and they spent
philanthropy.
Their money in a much different way because they knew, like Henry Ford, with all his problems, he knew that if he had happy workers, he would have a happy company and he'd make a more successful product. Obviously, he had his own complications, but like they just thought about the relationship between employer and employee and rich person and community a lot.
I like this girl.
Differently, and they saw the connections and the ties and what they could do to build that up. Yeah, to have better business in the end. This makes all of us better off.
Yeah, no, and I just feel like there's a lot of people who have like enough money to start a little business doing something interesting, and that would create value, and that would make them a little bit of money. But they can make so much more money investing in a REIT or in private equity, and so that's what they do. They let somebody like outsource all of the work of running a company, the stress.
Could, not would. These days, especially with the market Trump's made, putting money in the stock market is a roll of the dice, which is actually contrary to his own position. By that logic, Trump is making a more small business friendly environment because the stock market's more unreliable than just going to the bank, taking out a loan, or finding investors and taking their money and going out on your own.
Of running a company, and also the ethics of running a company, to somebody who will be ruthless and work hard, and they will end up making more.
Essentially, what he spent the first half of this video saying is that the stock market is unreliable and you can't trust it, and you should bet on something else. And now he's saying people are currently not betting on themselves, they're betting on the stock market. So his entire case can be summed up in: don't bet on the stock market anymore, bet on yourself.
Money, but boy.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. There was a Supreme Court case in 1919, Henry Ford actually, versus the Dodge brothers. And it ruled that a company's first interest should be to shareholders rather.
Which, I hate that one too. Overturn it, please, for the love of God.
Than to customers and to the community.
That's what killed publicly owned business, actually, is that shareholder value being the primary goal, shareholder value should not come into it at all. If you're buying as a small shareholder, you're buying into whatever the owner's view is. That's what you're doing. You're buying into their venture. You're not the venture. They are.
And so I think that's where everything went wrong. And so, you know,
I completely agree with her. I love this lady.
it's not, I'm not going to get on a soapbox about it, but it is important to think beyond the shareholder sometimes.
There are many stakeholders that are not shareholders. Kyla, you are an economist, you're a writer.
Kyla, I'm gonna have to look her up.
You do great work making sense of markets and vibes and power in our economy, and I appreciate all the work that you do on all of the social medias. And you can check out her book. It's called In This Economy, and that you can learn more about what you're doing and follow her on all the places. Thank you for spending some time talking through this with me.
Thank you.
So for over...
All right. That's all of it. As I said, big fan of
appreciate
Hank
all the
Green.
work that you
That's
do
not
on
Hank
all
Green.
of the social media.
Hey, look at that. Almost a good video or picture of him. Yeah, I saw the first 6 minutes of this and thought I had to watch the rest of it. Obviously, he's got a few more subscribers than I do, considering I think I have 0 at the moment. If you like these videos, you know, comment down below what your complaints are. Comment down below what you like, what you don't like, how I can make them better. I mean, they all seem to be hitting these ridiculously long lengths. If that's an issue, let me know. I can start breaking these out into clips. But yeah, I think me bitching at my TV screen is going to become a staple of my life. So, if you want it to be bearable, tell me how to make it more bearable. That's all I got for you. Go over to Hank Green. Why the economy hasn't crashed yet. 45-minute video, 47-minute video. I made it 2 hours. You have a great night. Bye-bye.